Catch a creative vibe on the Urban Kube with Sister Shamiza.
Today's show is special. I'm joined by a wonderful guest who will be talking to me about goal setting and how we can have greater clarity in our lives. She's going to be joining me via phone this morning, not on StreamYard. And once she's joined us, she will be talking to us all the way from London this morning. Now, who am I going to be joined by? I am joined by no other than the absolutely wonderful Sabba Mirza. Now, Sabba Mirza is talking to me, as I've already mentioned. She's going to be talking about a year in reflection and goal setting for the next year, where we're going to be exploring clarity, growth, and intentional steps forward. Now, Sabba Mirza is a data protection and cyber security and an AI lawyer for a technology company. She also is a coach. She also coaches women going through healing from a divorce, and she has a wonderful coaching page called At Rise Beyond Divorce. Now, she has great interest in traveling, hiking, and she has a wonderful legacy of charity work as well, which we're going to be exploring on the show this morning. So today's show, an absolutely special show, because it's the first show of 2026, and who best to have it with than with Sabba Mirza. Now, an interesting point about Sabba, she actually joined me this time last year talking about goal setting as well. So this is going to be really interesting to see how her journey across the year has been as well. So without further ado, an absolute pleasure to invite Sabba on the very first Inspire FM Urban Kube Show 2026. Assalamu alaikum, Sabba.
Walaikum assalam, Shamiza. How are you?
I'm very well, very, very well. It was a bit of a tricky one getting in. Luton woke up to -4 degrees, rather frosty. What is London looking like this morning for you?
It's deceptively sunny, so it's sunny, but it looks like it's warm, but it's not. It's a bit of a deceptive day. It's quite cold.
Interesting, isn't it? It's like super bright, super shiny outside. But you know what? My last show in 2025, I was saying to my guests, do you know what? I'm really looking forward to the snow. How does that make you feel?
How does that make me feel? Well, snow. So I don't really like the snow in England, I have to be honest. It looks stunning as it's just, coming down, falling down. It's brilliant. But when it just lands and sets, it's ice. And I'm literally Bambi on ice. There's no...
Bless. You are definitely somebody who's seen different types of climates across the world, and this is what I'm really going to be excited to talk about to you today, mashallah. Sabba, thank you so very much for joining me on the 2026 first show of the Urban Kube, and today's topic is a year in reflection and goal setting for the next year. And what we're going to be doing is talking to you about what that actually means, how we can explore clarity, how we can explore growth and intentional steps forward. So, Sabba, to begin with, what is goal setting? What do you understand, or what can we understand that means?
So in terms of goal setting, it's, as the title suggests, it's, I guess, looking quite inwardly and looking at your life, where it is at the moment, in quite a reflective way. I always approach it by assessing what's going well, what's not quite doing well, where is it that I want to be. And then I set a goal accordingly. And I always say about goal setting, it needs to be sort of digestible goals. So yes, sky's the limit, absolutely. We should certainly aim high, but also think about how we're going to get there. So those small steps in between, between now and reaching that major goal of yours are very, very important. So it involves not just setting an aim, it also includes a lot of reflection. I feel that's the very first step of goal setting.
And according to goals, should we be realistic with those goals?
I'd say it's about striking a healthy balance. Yes, it is about realistically what you can do at the moment to work towards your goals and achieve them. For example, if there's a particular course you want to do, you might feel like, okay, I can't afford this just yet, but I can afford to save up for it a little and be able to start the course in maybe, 6 months' time. So it's being realistic, looking at what your resources are, what your means are at the time as well, what your capacity is in terms of time. That's a very important one. I think a lot of people go into the new year especially and think, okay, I'm going to do all of these wonderful things and it's great, but they spread themselves really thin. So it's about being realistic in terms of what do you have by way of time, resources, even your emotional, mental capacity to undertake certain things and work towards that.
Thank you for mentioning that we sometimes overburden ourselves and being realistic and working with what we can actually do. And the simple actions, you mentioned just doing a course and whether we can afford to do that course or not. It's also just keeping things that are manageable. And I think that's really important. So thank you for mentioning that. Sabba, have you set any goals for yourself this year?
So my goals and I know we spoke about this last year when I said, I don't really set New Year's resolutions or anything like that. I think it's just, I'm just continuing. I'm continuing working towards some of the goals I've already set. I'm continuing to show up with intention rather than with urgency. And I'm continuing to choose consistency over perfection because perfection can take time. And sometimes perfection, we know, isn't attainable in certain things. I feel also this sense of really spreading yourself thin, doing too much, taking way too much on, having this heavy burden on your shoulders. I feel sometimes it's glamorized and glorified as well, and I don't think that's sustainable. So you have to really be kind to yourself, and me being kind to myself at this stage is, I've got some goals already that I'm working towards. I'm just going to keep at it with purpose and intention and be as consistent as possible.
I love that, with purpose and intention. That sounds like great words of wisdom there, and I think they can really resonate with many people listening in. For the people that are listening in, we are going out to the wonderful people in Luton surrounding areas, Peterborough's Salam Radio and Sheffield's Link FM. If you've just tuned in, folks, the time is 10:14. I am joined by no other than the absolutely wonderful Sabba Mirza. And Sabba Mirza is a data protection lawyer and a divorce coach. And she joins us today to have a year in reflection and goal setting for the next. That is the topic for today's show. If there's anybody that has a goal that they'd like to share with us on the show today, please feel free to contact us on 07779 481822. We are all ears, definitely on the show. I would love to hear what goals that you may potentially have set. Now, Sabba has said, let's do things with intention and not worry about being too perfect. I love that. I absolutely love that. That really rings true with me. Now, Sabba, mashallah, I have been observing a lot of your content on social media, mashallah, and I've been following your journey across the year. And your journey has taken you not just across the country, but across the world as well, with good intention. Tell us about these amazing journeys that you've had.
Gosh, so it's been a combination of things there. I think the travel is a byproduct of work. I'm required to fly out, especially to the States, for work, which I'd say are my more non-exciting trips. I've been privileged to get the opportunity to work with some brilliant charities and go abroad. I did a deployment last year in Jordan, and that was a very sort of humbling, eye-opening experience because we were working with Palestinian and Syrian refugees. So we actually went out to the camps, and it's very difficult to put into words the sense of emotion I even feel at this point in time. My heart feels really heavy because I guess of the devastation that you see there, how much need people are in, how reliant they are on us. Shmaiza, we had young girls come up to us, 14, 15 years old, and they said, you know what, we've really wanted to wear hijab, but we were waiting for someone to bring it for us.
Wow.
And, people in your team have bought some hijabs for us. And I thought, wow, how many of us have ever thought about anything in life like that? It really gives you a sense of your privilege. And you think, okay, we've gone out there, we've done some incredible work, we've given them, food, they've got hot iftar meals, and, we've gone and worked in orphanages. But you've not even scratched the surface. And so I feel it's really important when I speak about our goals and to do things with intention that we also expand that a little bit. It's not just about us, it should be about others as well. And that's the one element I do enjoy about fundraising, because it's bringing in that collective burger with everybody else getting involved, and then everybody seeing that, okay, this is where our donations they've given you, which is effectively the amana we have of everyone who donates, where that's going towards, how that's being used. So it's a huge responsibility, but honestly, some of the things I experienced, especially in the orphanage, were very, very heartbreaking. I mean, you just think, okay, somehow we could give these children a better life. But, there's great charities doing work out there, so I guess we continue supporting them so they are able to get a better life.
Absolutely. And I suppose that aligns your intention even more so and gives you more of a greater purpose in what you want to see happen around you. So could I then say that some of your intentions have a spiritual connection to them?
Definitely. They're all, I would say they are, when I think about what it is I want to do, one of the things that is always sort of core criteria, the first point you go to, is how does this align with me, being a Muslim woman? How does it align with my faith? Is this bringing me closer to Allah? Is this going to add to my life spiritually? Is it going to support others around me spiritually? I think that's a very, very important criteria that we should think about. And again, going back to what we said earlier, when we do our reflections and things like that, I always use my faith and spirituality as a criteria to see where I'm at and how I'm doing.
Now, you had an interesting journey that you shared with me in the previous show that you did in 2025. And you spoke of going to do Umrah and how that changed your life. Since doing Umrah, have you seen a change in you as a woman, as an individual?
I'd say definitely. I'd say being anchored in my faith has reminded me, slow down, check your intentions, and, just to trust the process. Our growth and change in life doesn't have to be instant. It doesn't have to be forced. And when I say, trust the process, it's just learning to surrender matters to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's not to say, we don't tie our camel, we don't do our bit. We do, certainly. But it's reminded me that patience, sincerity, and reliance on Allah matter just as much as the actions that we take.
Now, you are a corporate professional, mashallah. You are a data protection lawyer. You travel internationally, and you're a visible Muslim woman in this very fast-paced professional environment. How have you been able to balance that?
Do you know what? It's about setting boundaries. So when I'm at work, I do give it my all, but even at work, there are boundaries that I set. I always say, an employee that's well rested is one that's going to be productive, not make mistakes. They're going to be on the ball the next day. So I always encourage my team, and I do this myself because you have to practice what you preach. I do switch off. At a certain 6 o'clock generally, I'd say I switch off. People think lawyer and they think in crazy hours. Not always the case. I guess end of quarters tend to be busy, but other than that, if it's not urgent, it can wait till tomorrow. It's not business critical. That's okay. For me, it's more important that the work product that everyone's doing is really, really good. And it's also getting my stakeholders into the business used to that mindset as well. So it's setting those boundaries, setting expectations with people that you work with. And, again, I always say my personal life is very different to my professional life, and that I keep the two separate. That said, I will bring elements of my personal life into my work. So, for example, when it's Ramadan, I want to have my evenings free to be able to, read my Quran, do my reflections, do my du'as, be doing extra salah, rather than just working quite late into the evening. And I think there's a sense of us, if we don't tell our employers these things, they're not going to know. So it's really working towards setting expectations and boundaries.
Absolutely, and I'm really glad that you've raised this point. And if you don't tell somebody, then they're not going to know what changes they need to make. And it's those changes that can benefit their learning, but also benefit other employers as well. Sabba, it's just been wonderful listening into you, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of individuals wanting to find out, what does a data protection lawyer do? What does that role actually entail?
So data protection is just a specialism of law. So my role is ensuring that the organization I work for, so I don't work at a law firm, I work in-house in technology, just better work-life balance overall, I'd say. So that was a conscious decision I made. But it's doing compliance work, so making sure we've got the right policies, procedures, governance structure in place to be able to comply with data protection laws across the globe. Essentially what data protection laws purport to do, protect people's personal data. So, users like me and you, when we're using online services and digital services, we are handing our data over to whoever's providing us the service or the platform. Social media is a classic example. Now, there's a responsibility on all those organizations to ensure they're protecting our data. So it's setting up the governance structure internally for that and ensuring it's kept up to date with any legal changes. Then also we work with our various clients who we provide our service to, and then it's doing contracts and negotiations, which can be fun at times. And then if we're ever asked questions by, regulators, for example, or users who aren't quite happy with how their data's, been used, we need to deal with those. So there is a contentious and non-contentious element to the work, but generally an advisory lawyer. And day to day, I'll have people in the business, my stakeholders, say, look, we've got this interesting idea or product. Can we do that? Is it within the remit? Is it within the parameters of our compliance framework, or are we going to have to implement something else? And it's just saying, yes, this is good to go, or, you can do this if you do X, Y, and Z as well. So That's a
Wow.
very
Sounds
layman's term.
sounds very fascinating. Thank you for sharing that with us. It really does feel as if you're at the forefront of decision making and data protection, which is very, very kind of very now, isn't it? It's very relevant. And the fact that you're part of that, does it make you feel proud in any way? How would you feel about your role?
I'd say it's a role that is impactful. It's alhamdulillah, I've had that opportunity sort of throughout my career. I just enjoy it. I enjoy getting those exam style questions from the business where I'm like, okay, the answer to this isn't quite clear cut, and there's a bit of a grey area in the law. So what are we going to do here?
Love it.
Our risk appetite.
She's a bit of a geek. This one.
But it's interesting because the funny thing is I'm not very tech savvy. Ask me to set up a new phone and I will sort of crash and burn at that point.
I love the honesty. We are going to be heading to a break, Sabba. I love this. And you've been really patient with us because we weren't very tech savvy this morning on the show. That's why there was a little bit of a delay because I hadn't pressed a button, but that I was supposed to press. But we'll talk about that straight after the break. Folks, I am joined by the absolutely wonderful Sabba Mirza. She's joining me straight after the break where we're going to have more conversations about our year inflection goal setting for the next. Do not go away. Maybe grab yourself a cuppa. Come back to us where we'll be having more great conversations on the Urban Kube straight after this. Assalamu alaikum.
ذكر وموعظة ونور فيه شفاء للصدور وشفيعنا يوم النشور آياته تروي المدى وصفاته نبع الهدى نلقى الجنان بحبه لن تستقيم حياتنا إلا به هو القرآن والفرقان إليه تنصت الأكوان وفيه تعطر الآذان والقرآن ضياء يملأ الآفاق ونور يبعث الأشواق وفيه محاسن الأخلاق والقرآن كم يهتدي الحيران فيه والنفس كم حنت إليه يعلو ولا يعلى عليه هيا نرتل آيه ونعيش تحت ظلاله ننسى الهموم بقربه لن تستقيم حياتنا إلا به هو القرآن والفرقان إليه تنصت الأكوان وفيه تعطر الآذان والقرآن ضياء يملأ الآفاق ونور يبعث الأشواق وفيه محاسن الأخلاق والقرآن واسعد به قلوبنا واغفر به ذنوبنا واشرح به صدورنا يا ربنا أذهب به أحزاننا فرج به همومنا واجعله شاهدا لنا يا ربنا هو القرآن والفرقان إليه تنصت الأكوان وفيه تعطر الآذان والقرآن ضياء يملأ الآفاق ونور يبعث الأشواق وفيه محاسن الأخلاق هو القرآن.
Catch a creative vibe on the Urban Kube with Sister Shamiza.
Good morning, good morning, good morning, and Assalamu alaikum. It is at 10:30, 5th of January 2026, and you're listening to Inspire FM 105.1 FM with me, Shamiza, on the Urban Kube Show. It's an absolute pleasure to be in your company. Thank you so very much for joining me on the very first show of 2026, where I'm having a wonderful conversation with my esteemed guest, who's joining me all the way from London this morning, and we are talking about goal setting. And we're having a year in reflection, goal setting for the next. My guest today is Sabba Mirza. She's a data protection lawyer and a divorce coach. And it's been such a wonderful conversation I've had with her. And it's a conversation that you can all listen back to as well on Inspire FM on our Listen Back feature. Now, Sabba is joining us over the phone. Sabba, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Thank you so much for joining me on my first show back in 2026. For anybody who hadn't heard the first part, I wanted to share a little bit of information with you. Sabba actually joined me this time last year in 2025 around the same subject. So it just made sense to bring her back to see if anything had changed in her life or if there's any learnings and wisdoms that she could share with me today that's new as well. And so far, it's been really, really fascinating hearing what she's had to say. Sabba, once again, thank you for being a friend to the show. Thank you for being part of last year and now the beginning of this year as well. Sabba, or in a nutshell, how has life been for you and what's your view on the world since last year?
Gosh, so I have to say 2025 was a full year in every sense, right? It was fulfilling in the sense that I got to travel, see new places, and that ability gives me the sense of feeling really sort of alive and happy. It's very joyful. We discussed the charity work that I was privileged to be involved in, and it just reminded me that service is really, really important. I've got a lovely network of friends, family, that's my support system, and the people that, literally hold me when I'm down. We laugh together, cry together, and they've really showed up consistently. But it was testing. It was also a testing year. There's been moments that have, on a personal front, stretched me quite emotionally. And there's been moments where I've really had to sort of sit with discomfort instead of just sort of rushing through it all. And I have to say that the state of the world we're in at the moment is something that has an immense influence on those sort of really down, negative feelings. And I guess for me, it's really important to see what part can I play in this. What can I do to make things better? Not just for me, but, for a collective, where can I make a positive collective difference? And that's why I feel, one of the things I planned for this year is another deployment, which I'll be doing in Ramadan, inshallah. But I feel... I don't judge anyone for the certain decisions that they make, but I increasingly have a lot of people telling me, the news is so depressing, I don't watch the news anymore. my take on it is, and you can take it or leave it, is it's very important for you to be aware, because this is the world we're living in, and our today generally, it does shape our tomorrow as well. Being aware is the first thing that we can do, and then from that we think, right, what part can I play in it? And I know there's huge problems happening in the world, but if we all look at it and think, gosh, we can't do anything about it, then nothing will happen. But if you think, can you do you know what? The small thing I can do at the moment is donate a little bit towards charity, or volunteer a bit of my time, or actually there's a bit of expertise I have in my job. I can use that skill and transfer it to this, and maybe try and do some advocacy and raise awareness. And if we all started doing that, then collectively we will make a positive impact and difference. But without any of that sort of thinking and that mindset, we just have to acknowledge it has been quite depressing.
Absolutely, and some great words of wisdom and some wonderful snippets there. I mean, it's a ripple effect, isn't it? Just one small action could lead to so many wonderful opportunities. You just never know. But it's having tawakkul as well, isn't it, Sabba?
Definitely, it's putting that trust in Allah. And like I said, before, it's always about checking our intention and seeing how what we do aligns with our faith. And whenever we go through, it's in the Quran, with hardship comes ease, and those are the words of our God Almighty. And so I think we really need to have tawakkul and put our trust in Allah. But that's one part of it. The other part is also our action, our own character. And I think before we can go and sort of change the world and do all these positive, exciting things, we also need to look inwardly to see how is it that we're growing, how is it that we're changing as well. So your growth as an individual is very, very important. And I always tell people I coach, it's not like a sudden switch, and it's not always linear either. Growth requires a lot of honesty.
Absolutely. And I can see this growth in you, and I can hear the honesty from you. And thank you for sharing your truths that you've shared, that, it wasn't an easy year for you, and the learnings that you gained from that, because life is a lesson, and it is character building. And character building and development seems to be very key in the work that you do. You mentioned coaching. Tell us a little bit more about what this coaching is and how it came about.
So how it came about was I was in a very abusive marriage, Shamiza. I was married for a week shy of 4 years, and it was one of the most difficult times of my life, to the point, it just felt like I was constantly waking up. Like I couldn't wake up from this nightmare. That's what it felt like. Things were just going from bad to worse. It was very abusive. And when you're in that situation, it's very difficult to see the wood from the trees. And it's only when you get out of it and you take a step back and you look back at everything that's happened. And for me at that time, therapy really helped. I started getting therapy towards the end of my marriage anyway. And then it just all sort of clicked and made sense. And I think confronting that, you've gone through abuse, especially as an educated career woman, because there's a lot of judgment, Shamiza. People almost think, oh, well, you're educated. Did you not recognize the abuse? Did you not see that was a problem? Did you not see that was controlling behavior? Did you really have to wait till it got so worse and obvious? But I think that's an awful way that people look at it, because there's almost the assumption that, if you get abused, then you must have been stupid, or you have to be, illiterate, not very educated, or things like that. But abuse doesn't discriminate. Abusers don't discriminate. In fact, especially a narcissistic personality, gets a kick out of bringing down someone who is quite well put together and strong. So I went through all of that, and a few years after my case was done and dusted, I thought, do you know what, I could have really have done with some help back then from another Muslim woman. And that was then the catalyst that, got me setting up the Instagram page that I have. And I started talking about narcissistic abuse, sort of common challenges, pitfalls when you're going through a divorce, what the dirty tactics are that the other side may play to bring you down or to, slow down, the process. And then I moved into coaching. And really the idea is there to give people a sense of clarity. So I get clients coming from, a range of backgrounds and at different stages in their life. So if someone's contemplating a divorce and they, that's where they recognize there's problems in the marriage, provided it's safe to do so. So, if there's no sort of physical, domestic abuse or things like that, I often signpost them to go get couples counselling and to work on things. And, some people get through it, that's brilliant. Others come back and say, look, couple counselling hasn't worked and, I'm done. So the decision's always theirs. My role is really just to make sure that they have a safe outlet, someone to speak to about what it is they're going through, someone who can, answer some of the questions which we don't really want to keep asking our lawyers and driving up the legal fees. And it's about getting through the divorce process with your dignity, your mental well-being, in as good shape as it can be, because it's a very, very difficult time. Do you know, actually, when I was going through my divorce, Shamiza, one of the colleagues I was working with, I was at a law firm back then, he said, it's the second most difficult thing you'll go through in your life, And I said, really, what's worse than this? And he goes, death. And I said to him, but if I die, I'm not going to feel anything. And he goes, Sabba, this is really saying something about your state of mind at the moment. When I said death, I mean dealing with the death of a loved one. So organising the funeral, or the probate, all the paperwork that comes after it. That's what's really stressful. And I said, oh, okay.
Wow.
So it's I've
what a comparison. Wow, what a comparison.
Really is, yeah.
And it's a service that and a support network that is very, very much needed. And the emotional roller coaster that can be, and the fact that you've experienced it, so you're able to share your own personal experience, makes a huge difference. Sabba, if there's anybody who's going through this process at the moment, what guidance could you potentially give? Would you say there is light at the end of the tunnel?
I mean, there is. I guess, what you said after what I just said, Shamiza, validates that. What a comparison. There is. It's about having that tawakkul, in that belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that trust in him that you'll get through this. But also having that belief in yourself. And I find a lot of the women that I work with have to rebuild that confidence, that trust in themselves as well. Because when you're abused, you second guess everything. Abusers can sometimes even distort your sense of reality, and that has lasting effects. And I tend to work with clients, giving them exercises, and even sort of through the coaching and conversation, just to guide them through the process. But actually, hold on, what you're doing here, is right. You don't have to keep second guessing yourself here just because you were second guessing yourself in an abusive marriage. And it's really just, it's rising above it, as, my cheesy title of my page suggests, rise beyond divorce. And it's also not getting roped up into that label. I'm a divorcee, I'm not going to meet anyone, I'm not going to find anyone. The work that I do is setting you up well to be able to go pursue whatever endeavour you want in life, whether it's a career because now you're a single mum, you've got to support children, whether, it's another relationship, in which case we really hone in on your healing and focusing on that, just so that you're not taking in any, I hate using the word baggage, but it is baggage from your, traumatic relationship into the next one, because we have to be fair to ourselves. And we have to be fair to the other person as well.
Could I then ask you a question about moving forward? Once the sisters have healed and moved forward, and they potentially may want to find a spouse, inshallah, may that happen, what would your key things be there to advise and guide them?
You really need to know yourself and what it is you bring to the table. Right, first and foremost, we need to look within ourselves. And then you need to be very clear about what your non-negotiables are. So, that could be you want someone who is God-fearing, who's practicing Muslim, for example. That's a requirement which you won't compromise on. And then, you need to be able to have a conversation with someone where you can actually elicit that information from them, that does this person meet my criteria, and you also need to have your sort of your eyes open, your ears open, don't just get so caught up in the, oh, it was a lovely date, it was a lovely dinner. Yes, of course the dinner was lovely because you went to a nice restaurant. Think about what the company was like. How did you feel in their company? How did that individual make you feel? Were you yourself in their company? So you really have to separate all the fluff from what it is you're really looking for and really look into the substance and don't rush.
Absolutely. I love that, what you've just said. And don't rush. Look at the substance in that individual. Absolutely. Some really good key points that you've addressed there. And the reason I wanted to ask this question, because I'm going to be a bit controversial here. I am noticing and seeing loads of case studies where there has been some negative interactions and negative basically stories coming from the rise in marriage apps. I'm not going to say that they're not good or anything. I've got to be very, very tactful in how I say this, but I'm just saying I'm just coming across a lot of case studies. So if anybody, there is a rise in them, but how do you navigate this horizon, which is becoming quite common for a lot of Muslims to actually try and find potential husbands and wives on there? But how do you navigate that safely?
Look, I mean, I've heard some horror stories as well, and I know we've discussed this before as well, Shemaiza. It's not about the app itself or the service. That's a mechanism there to provide a service. It's a tool essentially, right? Now it's down to the person, the user, to determine how it's using it. So I would say yes, you do get some con artists there, and some people that do display predatory behavior, but for especially sisters who've gone through a divorce as well, going into all of that, go with your eyes open, have your wits about you, really approach. You have to set certain boundaries to ensure your safety first and foremost, because you don't know that person who you're speaking to, right? And it doesn't matter if we're older, we're mature, or we're adults. You still have to have your wits about you, because that is a stranger. So you need to focus on first, building rapport. Once there's a bit of rapport and trust, then you can start opening up to someone. But again, keep an eye out for red flags as well. There's some very common ones out there. For example, love bombing's a classic one. Where someone's overly nice to you. If they're showering you with gifts straight away, if they're going in sort of full on. Because that sort of behaviour always makes me think, hold on a sec, what have I done to deserve all that time of yours? You only just swiped yesterday, It doesn't make sense. The thing is, relationships need to be nurtured. And so if you're going from one extreme to another, I would say look at it and think, what's going on there? And I often have a lot of friends tell me, Joe, I feel really, really great. He gives me gifts. He takes me to lovely places. Again, but what is it you're liking here? Are you liking the gift he's given you and the lovely place you've gone to? Or is it this person? Like, where's the substance? And I can be a bit facetious, and I'll say, look, I can take you to a nice restaurant. Don't mean we're going to get married now, does it? Right? So
that's a really good example that you've just given, that you could take your friend to a nice restaurant, but it doesn't mean I'm going to marry you. So it's actually keeping your eyes and your wits about you. And thank you for giving that example. It is quite a contentious issue, but it is an issue, I think, that it's a subject and a conversation that does need to be had. And I hope that I'm going to be able to have another conversation with you about this on a future show. But if there's anybody that kind of wants to connect with you, Sabba, about maybe some of the conversations that we've had, how can they do that?
So I have an Instagram page which is public. It's called Rise Beyond Divorce, all one word. So you can contact me through that. Just drop me a DM and we can have a conversation there. I also have I also use TikTok. They're all linked. I'm not like a social media junkie. They're all linked to each other. So there's a TikTok account as well, and you can also send me a DM on that, whatever helps. But Instagram, I'd say, is probably the easiest. So Rise Beyond Divorce.
Absolutely. And you were talking about your next deployment as well, your charity deployment in Ramadan. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yes, so I'm going to be going to Turkey this Ramadan for 6 days with Islamic Help. And the plan we have there is to, again, deliver food parcels, which is like your 1 month's groceries and essentials that you'll need to refugee families. So we'll be packing those, dropping them off to the families. And then we will also be going to like an orphanage. We go to schools and or community centres, and we tend to do an iftar there. So that involves us, packing all the hot meals together for them, and then distributing them. And then we do iftar together. We're also going to be renovating some homes. So these are homes where you've got widows and orphan children, and we'll be doing some essential renovation work there as well. And then we also tend to give children these little vouchers for them to go out shopping and get new Eid clothes or toys that they may want. So that's what it's going to be. So I'm looking forward to that.
It sounds absolutely lovely. And if anybody wanted to support you or be part of this, how could they get involved?
Again, I'm fundraising. I'll put the link on my Instagram page. So please go donate. It's a Launch Good page. It's got various sort of options in terms of what you can give, and you can give as little as £1. Honestly, there's so much barakah in doing this collectively. Any support you guys can give would be immensely appreciated.
As somebody who has a legal background and who does her due diligence, what makes you then choose a charity to support? What do you actually look for? So for me, the projects that they're doing is very important. So I work typically with two charities, Islamic Help being one of them, Muslim Charity being the other. So I do quite a lot with them, and I look at the projects and sort of who the beneficiaries are. So, for example, with MC, I love the fact that they're doing income generation projects, and I feel those are great because they bring people out of that cycle of poverty. Because you set them up with a business, like we tend to give people a tuk-tuk, for example. They get their license, they get their training. They're not allowed to sell it for quick cash, but it gets them in a routine of work. We get their kids out of school and out of work into school as well, and we monitor that. So for me, the projects are important. The ongoing monitoring after I've donated as well, that's very important to me. So I did a project back in 2019. I still know how that beneficiary is doing, today, and it's 2026. And I can see that growth and development and the impact that, an income generation project has had to his life. That's important. In terms of due diligence, I would say go and look at their accounts as well. Everything's available online on the Charity Commission site and on the websites of these charities as well. Read about how much money is actually going to the cause. Of course, charities do have a bit of admin. The majority tend to utilise gift aid mainly for that. But sometimes some donations will go towards admin. So see what the impact is. They tend to give you statistics that, out of every £1 you donate, 97 pence goes to the beneficiary, for example, which is great. If 50 pence is going to the beneficiary, I'll think, wait, what are you doing with the other half of the money? So accountability, transparency, that's really important. And I feel it's down to you to do your research as well. And people at these charities are really helpful as well. If you wanted to have a conversation with them to learn more, I'm sure they'd be more than happy to do that. And also connect with others, other volunteers who are working, who are, consistently going back and working with the same charity over and over. So I've always said
to the charities I volunteer with that, you know, if anyone wants to have a conversation, even if it's something like, what's it like as a woman going on a deployment, I'm more than happy for you to send them my way.
Yeah, this is the question I wanted to ask you. As a woman going on deployment, and you've been on quite a lot of deployments. How many have you done to date?
I have no idea. So last year I did the tuk-tuk challenge, which it's more of a challenge as opposed to a deployment. But it's a bit combined. It's hybrid. So we do a challenge where we race the tuk-tuk across Pakistan every day. So that's like a rickshaw as well for those who don't go by the word tuk-tuk. And we tend to visit a lot of their projects, and we might say if we're going to a school, we'll give them sort of supplies, like, you know, they might get their new uniforms and things like that. So we visit a lot of their projects there, and obviously at the end we donate the rickshaw to someone anyway. So I've done that 5 times with Muslim charity.
Wow. And you know, this is so inspiring because it's very unique. This journey that you've taken in a rickshaw across Pakistan, not something that the normal person would do every day unless you're living there. But for a British woman from the corporate sector to go and do that with another group of women is just extraordinary. I mean, you are living the life. It's amazing. I love how giving and how nurturing your life has been in 2025.
You're too kind.
And 2026, mashallah, may Allah bring you more barakah in everything you do. It is the end of the show, Sabba. Thank you so much.
It flies by when I'm speaking to you, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Thank you for having me, Shamiza. I really don't know what I do to deserve all the wonderful things you say, and that introduction as well you gave, I was quite taken back. But thank you so much for having me, and I really hope you have an amazing and fulfilling year as well.
Thank you so much, Sabba. An absolute pleasure speaking to the wonderful Sabba Mirza. Beautiful inside and out. It is the end of the show, folks. Thank you so much for being my guests on the very first Urban Kube of 2026. And take care, keep smiling and stay warm.